Pest Geek Podcast, episode number 4. Pull out your hose and grab your can. We're about to integrate another Pest Geek Podcast. Hi, everybody. Frank Hernandez here, and welcome to the Pest Geek Podcast, bringing you the latest news, products, and politics from today's leading industry pros, offering you their technical marketing and growth strategies to give you, the pest management professional, that killer edge. Hey, welcome to the Pest Geek Podcast. This is Frank Hernandez, your Pest Geek, and I have a real treat for you today. I have on the phone Casey Parker. Now, Casey is a graduate student from the University of Florida's Entomology and Nematology program. She has currently won the One World competition for her novel Mosquito trap. Pest Geek Podcast, will you please welcome Casey Parker? Hey, Casey, welcome to the program.
Hi, good to be on.
Hey, thanks for having. I know that you're not feeling well and you've been a little under the weather, but you're a real sport, and I really do appreciate it. This is really an honor to have you on this podcast.
Well, thank you so much. I'm really glad that you invited me to be on for today.
Yes, no, I read about the article on IFAS News, and I said, wow, this is like really cool because I've been working on trying to control mosquitoes using different methods without having to use pesticides. And all of a sudden, here you are creating a trap, and as a student, and I thought that was like, first of all, you're a student. You're not a seasoned industry veteran, and here you are coming up with such an important a product for the world. And I thought that was just really, really exciting.
Well, thanks. The trap itself, it is designed to control a specific type of mosquitoes that flies and bites during the day, and also transmit some really important diseases like dengue and chikungunya.
Yeah, let me ask you a question, though, because when I read about you that you are originally were studying to become a pharmacist. And
that's correct.
You ended up in entomology, which is really, really strange. First of all, what made you decide to be a pharmacist in the first place? I mean, how did you come across that career path?
I mean, really, in high school, I just kind of didn't really know what I was going to go to college for. There's always been a really big pressure on me to go to college, and rightfully so. My parents wanted me to be successful, but when they asked me, what are you going to study when you go to college, I'm like, I have no idea. There's so many different options to choose from. When the University of Florida sends you a list of majors, you have everything from entomology to physical therapy to, a plethora of different things. So I just picked pharmacy because I knew that pharmacists made a lot of money, and that was about all I knew about what they did. So I was, that sounds like a good route. I'm going to be successful if I can be a pharmacist. So I came to the University of Florida, and I took a single semester of chemistry classes, and I hated every second of it. I am awful at chemistry. I almost failed my chemistry classes and kind of realized that really wasn't the route that was going to make me happy and also going to make me successful. So at the time, I was also taking a course called Bugs and People, and Dr. Carl Barfield was the professor for that course. And I don't know, I just had a lot of chats with him about entomology and what he did and what other opportunities there were in entomology. And he eventually convinced me to switch my major. And once I did that, I started working in Dr. Phil Kaler's urban entomology lab as an undergraduate. So I was working on a variety of different undergraduate projects, from cockroaches to flies to mosquitoes. And it just kind of led me to collaborating on this idea for the trap that we now have as a solid idea.
No, that is a common. I had the same problem when I went to college. I originally went back in the 80s when programming and computer programming was the thing, and I was terrible at coding. I couldn't code to save my life, and my teacher told me, you're acing all your business classes. Maybe you should switch your major, and I did. I did the same thing, and I find that in doing a lot of youth work and a lot of youth counseling, it's a common issue with they don't know what they're going to do when they get there, and high school doesn't really prepare you for it. And a lot of parents don't know what their kids should study, and they can't help them usually along this path. So it's common, and that I see that in a lot of students that end up switching their major, sometime through or even after they graduate, they'll switch to another career. What did your parents think when you told them about, I'm not going to be a pharmacist, I'm going to study bugs?
Well, I mean, I pretty much would say I've gotten the same response from almost every single person that I've ever approached with this major, and that's, what are you going to do with that? What are you going to do studying bugs? And the thing is that people don't understand the market out there that there is for entomologists. I mean, in our department alone, we, aren't graduating students out fast enough because the demand in the industry and other aspects of entomology is really high, but entomology is such an underappreciated science that, we just don't produce enough of them. But, my parents were kind of skeptical, as all parents should be, when their daughter switches from a very lucrative, known to be successful career choice to a kind of like abstract thing. But once I started getting into it and giving talks and doing research, they were really excited for me. And I think now in my small group of friends, people realize, how successful, you can be, not just by studying entomology, but by studying something that you're good at and that you enjoy.
Yeah, no, that's definitely the key. I mean, you got to work with your attributes and, what you can get excited about doing every day. If it's just the money, that will fade. But no, I thought that would, I couldn't imagine the look on your parents' face when, I want to study bugs for a living. But it is valuable, and I really do work with a lot of entomologists, and the information and the research they do is really priceless for us to be able to understand what we do in the field. I wanted to get to, how did you come across the idea, or how did you come across the selection for this particular trap when you could have chosen any other, probably for your thesis, anything else? How did you decide on specifically to work on this mosquito trap? What motivated you?
So this started basically as kind of just a thought between me and my major professors and a couple of other outside collaborators. And we basically were looking at the problem of the Aedes vectors. And when I say Aedes, I'm talking about a genus of mosquito that transmits dengue and chikungunya. And so we've been dealing with this a lot in Florida. We now have dengue and chikungunya here where, in Florida where I live. And so it's becoming a growing problem. And Aedes is a very invasive mosquito. They're getting all over the world. And the impact for this trap was really high. But, at the time we were like, man, we just want to control these mosquitoes. How do we do it? So we started looking at the unique behaviors of the Aedes mosquito, like the fact that they like to bite during the day and the fact that they like to lay their eggs in containers versus large bodies of water. And so those unique characteristics kind of led us to the lethal overtrap. And basically, the lethal overtrap is not a new idea. It's one that's been used to control Aedes mosquitoes for a little while now, but with varying success. Basically, what we wanted to do is we wanted to take the lethal overtrap, which is just like a plastic solo cup, if you can imagine that, with a pesticide strip in it. And we wanted to modify that to make it as attractive as we possibly could make it to the Aedes mosquitoes. And so we modified different aspects of the trap to do so.
Gotcha. Okay, so now how did you end up entering the competition with this idea?
So Dr. Taylor is my major advisor on my committee. And as an undergraduate, I was a leadership minor. So I took a lot of different leadership classes. And one of my professors, his name was Tony Andinoro. And I got along with him really well. We had a lot of really great conversations about what we're going to do to impact our world. And so when I became a graduate student, I stayed at the University of Florida. And Dr. Andinoro had sent out an invitation for innovation ideas to impact our growing population. And so I applied to this because Dr. Taylor actually sent over an email to me that said, hey, you should apply for this. The lethal overtrap would be a really great idea. And so I called Dr. Andinoro and I said, hey, I have this trap and the mosquitoes that it controls transmit disease. And, if we have a lot of people, that's a lot of opportunity to transmit disease. So do you think this would fit into what you need for the One World conference? And he was like, yeah, absolutely. So we just made a really quick video for the application, and then it just kind of skyrocketed from there.
Yeah, and you mentioned that there were like 5 other people competing in that competition,
right?
And and you overall were the winner. What was the criteria for trying to win this?
And so when we all applied, there wasn't really a criteria other than our population is going to reach 9.6 billion by the year 2050. What idea do you have to contribute that can help solve the global population problem? And so all of us just kind of brought a variety of different ideas. Some of them were online websites to have businesses be accountable for the different things that they're doing, like the GMOs. Other people were kind of developing think tanks online so that you could collaborate with people all over the world. I know another group, they had like shoes, energy shoes, that just by walking you could generate energy that could fuel your cell phone or your house or a school in the evening. And so it's just different ideas that we think are going to be necessary for our population, which is expected to be 9.6 billion.
Yeah, because I mean, when I think of mosquito control in this country, it's mostly, for the most part, it's mostly a nuisance thing. You want to enjoy your backyard. You want to be able to barbecue. But for the majority of the world, this is a real health crisis for them. And
oh, absolutely. And I recommend anybody that hasn't done it to go to the CDC dengue map and just look in Central and South America and look how many cases of dengue and chikungunya they have just south of our borders. I mean, the whole country is just covered in red dots. There's not a section on that map that you can look at in Central and South America that isn't pretty much plagued by these diseases. So it's really crazy. You know, people in the United States don't appreciate how lucky we are to only have to deal with mosquitoes as a nuisance and not as a disease vector.
Yeah, I mean, I see when they have to go through towns, entire towns with toxic, they'll use a lot of the heated type of pesticides, and they'll have to apply them to entire towns to basically control their mosquitoes so they don't just die. That's pretty much what I see. And one of my concerns has always been the amount of pesticide that has to be put out to try to control these things, even in our controlled environments that we have. It's very taxing, especially when a lot of the customers that I have do this to themselves by planting, like a million bromeliads in their yard right around their barbecue grill. And they want to get, natural control, and there is no way because of, the bodies of water or the, whatever the drainage problems are, the plants. But like you said, around the world, this is a major crisis for underdeveloped countries and third world countries. And I think it's just phenomenal that you're able to do something like this that really, because you put some impressive numbers out there of the control that you were able to get. Can you talk a little bit about the control you're able to get?
Sure. So since we've had this trap, we've run a lot of preliminary studies. Of course, we're pursuing EPA registration, so there's a lot more in-depth studies that we have to go through. So it could be a couple years before this product is commercially available for people. But basically, we've done lab efficacy studies to try and evaluate, okay, what percentage of mosquitoes in the cage can we kill, and also can we prevent the eggs from developing successfully. So in a no-choice test, where the mosquitoes have no option of where they're going to oviposit, we can control the mosquito population 98%, which is pretty good for a lab study. And when we do oviposition preference studies, we have about 83% reduction in the number of eggs laid when mosquitoes are given the option of laying in multiple places. So we've had a lot of really good preliminary data so far that shows this trap has the potential to be successful when incorporated into an integrated mosquito management plan. So this is by no means going to fix the problem all by itself. But Aedes is definitely a neglected species that we're having trouble controlling, because when we're spraying to control mosquitoes, we're spraying to control them when they're flying around. And when most mosquitoes are flying around, it's not when these mosquitoes are flying around. So we have to have an alternative to controlling them, which is the purpose of this trap.
Yeah, because when most people think of mosquitoes, they're thinking of the adult mosquito. They're not considering the larva.
Oh, absolutely.
Problem. They're always just the one that's biting, but they're ignoring, and that's the majority of the cases. Most people that I talk to don't understand how mosquitoes reproduce, and therefore they're just wanting to kill what's in the air, which is very, very difficult to do. You controlling the larva, so it does a very good job of controlling the larval as well as the adult mosquito.
Oh, absolutely. So in studies that I have done, and I've been working with this trap for about a year now, I have 0% of the time had an egg hatch when put into a treated trap. So when the traps are treated, the eggs are completely unable to hatch at all. So the pesticide that's actually contained inside the trap prevents the egg from hatching completely. And so we never have a larval generation breeding inside those traps.
Okay. Let me ask, what are the, like, I'm sure that with any type of project like this, there's a lot of trial and error. There's a lot of failure that you have to deal with. What were the challenges that you faced during this whole process of working with this, and the frustrations and the things that come along with this type that most people don't understand what it takes to actually do this? What did you come across?
I don't even know where to begin on that. So I guess, when we're developing, a trap, we have so many different components that we want to maximize in this. And we make the trap, and we have the design, and we send it out to get made, and we get a trap back, and it's this very brittle plastic, and you drop it, and it shatters into a million pieces. And so that was one of the major frustrations in the beginning, was that we were working with this extremely fragile product that I didn't feel like was going to be really good for the user, because at the end of the day, people drop stuff, things get knocked over, and that's the last thing you want, is something that's breakable. So we had to change the plastic for the trap. Coming up with the formulation that we could put inside the trap and that EPA was going to approve was really frustrating. So that was a lot of trial and error. When I was running experiments with these out in the field over in Greece, silly things like I would have snails getting into my trap, and it's just something you don't think about, like, why in the world are snails going to try and crawl in my trap? But they would, and they liked it because the water was in there, but I had snails crawling in there.
No, so this is not something you just did here in Florida. This is something you worked in overseas in different places.
Oh, okay. So I might have left that part out. Last summer, I spent 4 months living in Greece. There is a USDA lab over there, and one of the USDA scientists that is there is on my graduate committee. So she invited me over to do some of my research over the summer with her, and at the same time give me my mosquito training and whatnot. Because when I came in as a graduate student, I really wasn't a mosquito expert by any means. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just kind of like learning this new thing. And so she taught me all I needed to know about the mosquitoes and how to run field experiments and all that. And so, yeah, this research, I took the trap over there, did some research over there with her in Greece. And, yeah, it was pretty wild how it was kind of a whirlwind, because I graduated with my bachelor's and then went straight to Greece with this research right away.
So how long have you been working on this total project as far as time?
So from the very beginning, like when we were just developing the idea, it's probably been 2.5 years, I would say. Because the beginning we were just looking at, the larvicide, which is the pyroproxyfen. So that's what we were looking at from the very beginning. And I remember when we were just, treating the insides of little plastic cups, and I was washing those cups with water. And so that was probably 2.5 years ago. And now it's developed into like this solid, tangible trap that I can actually hold in my hand. And that's really exciting to be there from start to finish.
No, that is like when you actually work on something, you devote yourself to it, that the process, that perseverance to follow through and continue, even in the face of all the opposition and the failure, that you actually come across the other side and you have something that you can show for your effort when everybody sometimes thinks you're nuts.
More often than not, they think you're nuts.
Yeah, that's always been my case, and like I said, that's one of the things that we're so excited. So this was for your master's program. What are you looking at a PhD after this, or doctorate, or are you just going to stick right now with your master's after you're done?
So I'm going to definitely go for my PhD.
Yeah.
I've always kind of felt, just for myself personally, not in general, but a master's is just going to kind of like not be the end for me. And I know that I'm eventually going to want a PhD, but if I'm already doing, my education and whatnot now, why not just like get it finished? So I definitely want to pursue a PhD, and I'm looking into a couple different programs, but I definitely want to stay with the medical and veterinary focus. I really enjoy working with disease vectors, and so it doesn't necessarily have to be mosquitoes. I do enjoy mosquitoes, but if I got to work with different diseases like Chagas and other insect vector diseases, I would definitely be happy with that. But yeah, so I'm definitely planning on pursuing a PhD.
Gotcha. And now I'm assuming you got a long road ahead of you with the obviously getting all this done with the EPA. Is this something that you're working with alone, or you're working with? Hold on, give me 1 second. Because I didn't put it on. I'll edit this out. Give me a second. I have I should have. Hold on a second. So
okay.
I don't get interrupted. I didn't put the privacy, do not disturb on the call. So that somebody just tried to call in. Let me just get that off there. So as far as your the process now, getting all this approved by the EPA, and I guess, and you're working with a partner on this, as far as somebody that's helping getting this through, or is this something that you're doing on your own?
So we have a business partner, and his name is Enrico Levy, and so he's the business side of all of this. And then Dr. Phil Kaler and Dr. Roberto Pereira are also very heavily involved in this. So they're mostly communicating with the EPA. And so when the EPA says that, okay, we need an experiment that explores this, that's where I come in. And so I'm actually running the experiments that they need, kind of looking at the data, figuring out what the data tells us, and then relaying that information back to them so they can get the information to the EPA, and we can move on to the next set of experiments.
Gotcha. So you still got a pretty much a long road ahead still. This isn't, a done deal that you're going to have to work with for quite a while.
So, and that's kind of the negative side of it. Master's degrees are traditionally 2 years. And so as much as this trap is kind of like my baby, and I've been there from the very beginning, I do have a deadline. I have to be finished with my thesis in May of 2016. Now, when I'm finished, that doesn't necessarily mean that the trap is finished. There may be additional tests that you need that must be run by the EPA. And so those things will still have to get done. It might be a different person doing them. But until May of 2016, this trap is mine and solely mine. And I'm going to run as many experiments with it as I possibly can.
Gotcha. No, I am. We're rooting for you. What are your plans after college? I mean, what do you plan to do after you're done here? And for as far as you mentioned, you like to work with animals. And in that field, what kind of a career path do you think you're going to go down?
That is the $1 million question. I look at people's jobs now. I'm really involved in the pest control industry, just being in an urban pest management lab, and so there's a lot of things industry side that I really enjoy. But I also look at positions with the World Health Organization or the Center for Disease Control or even the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and I see the impactful work that they're able to do as well. And so it's just a matter of figuring out first if I want to be in the industry side or if I want to be in the research and development side of things and developing cures and whatnot. So I kind of just have to figure out in the next 6 years which side I want to go and then narrow down my choices from there. But I definitely see myself staying in the medical and veterinary side because I really enjoy not just working with insects, but working with insects that transmit disease and go farther than just being a nuisance.
Gotcha. No, I think it's awesome. I think I know a lot of the people in there that are doing awesome work, even on the commercial side and also on the university side, and they've devoted themselves their lives to certain fields, and it's just admirable to do that. I do thank you. It's been refreshing. It's been enlightening. It's been very encouraging to talk to you and have you on the program and go through this. And I really do appreciate it. And I do wish you all the best. And I just want you, as soon as you get that trap and get it on the market, that I can be the first one to interview you at that point too. So I really do thank you.
If we have any field trials that we ever need done, I'm going to send them out to your house.
Sounds like a plan. I like it. Awesome. No,
well, thank you so much for having me on the show today. I really appreciate you reaching out to me, and I hope that people, your listeners, will hear this and kind of also open their eyes a little bit more if they haven't to the impact that mosquitoes have on our daily lives. So.
I do too. I do hope it does impact a lot of people, and it does help some of the people appreciate a little bit more of what you guys do. I thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you.
All right. I hope you feel better too. Have a nice day.
Oh, you do the same.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Pest Geek Podcast. If you have enjoyed the Pest Geek Podcast, please give us a rating, write a review, or subscribe to the channel. You can join the Pest Geek Society by visiting pestgeekpodcast.com. Thank you for listening. See you next time.